All right, now a breaking news Hannity exclusive surrounding the all-important Georgia Senate race, as we have obtained the full body cam footage of Raphael Warnock's dispute with his ex-wife in March of 2020, where she accused him of trying to run her over with his car, and he actually ran over her foot with his car, and where his, well, crying ex-wife told police that Warnock is a great actor and that he'd done all this and suggested that he has a violent past. As always, we'll play the tape. We'll let you decide. Take a look.
And he just starts backing the car up. And he wasn't going fast. Like, I'm not bleeding, but I just can't believe he would run me over.
So you think it was intentional that he ran your foot over?
I just don't think he cares. I think, obviously, I'm standing here, the door is open, and I'm leaning into the car. How can you drive the car when I'm leaning into it? He knew it was a risk, and he doesn't care. He just cares about his own stuff.
Okay.
He's got a flight to catch, and that's all that matters. This man's running for United States Senate, and all he cares about right now is his reputation. I've tried to keep the way that he acts under wraps for a long time, and today he crossed the line. Like, I had to draw the line today. I've had enough of him thinking he can do whatever he wants because of who he is and treat me any kind of way, and I just keep taking it and being quiet for his reputation's sake, and I've had it.
Now, she's making an accusation that he was using his car as a weapon to run her over and, in fact, ran over her foot in the process as a result of this domestic dispute. It raises a question. Why wasn't Raphael Warnock arrested and charged in the incident, which does in and of itself raise a lot of ethical questions, because isn't it pretty much standard operating procedure for police departments and all around the country when there's a domestic dispute and there is an allegation of violence that one person is taken and down to police headquarters, the one that is charged? Anyway, Warnock's troubles don't stop there. He wants to end cash bail. He demonized police, even referred to them as thugs and gangsters. He also said you cannot serve God and the military. He compared America's legacy to, let's see, Fidel Castro. He praised Louis Farrakhan and the Reverend Jeremiah Wright. He wants CRT in our schools. He supports abortion on demand through the 9th month, no restriction on abortion. He's been a rubber stamp for everything Biden and the new Green Deal climate cult alarmists. He's hell-bent on destroying pretty much our way of life in this country. But Warnock is just one of many extreme socialists that are running for office. That includes the ever-struggling socialist to the left of Bernie Sanders, trust fund brat in a hoodie that's never worked a job in his life, John Fetterman. An NBC News reporter even noted that Fetterman struggled to speak, didn't seem to understand the conversation prior to the interview. But, of course, that reporter faced pushback from left-wing host Savannah Guthrie, the expert that she is. Take a look.
NBC News agreed to Fetterman's request to use a transcription program during this interview because he's still experiencing auditory processing issues from the stroke, meaning he can't always understand what he's hearing. Walk me through why we need the closed captioning, how it works.
Yeah, it's really just how things happen, because I sometimes will hear things in a way that's not perfectly clear. So I use captioning, so I'm able to see what you're saying in captioning.
And Savannah, we did find that in small talk before the interview, without captioning, it seemed it was difficult for Fetterman to understand our conversation.
Yeah, and Dasha, you had mentioned that last night on Nightly. Since then, other journalists who've also dealt with Fetterman came forward and said they had a different experience.
Yeah, and Savannah, that's completely fair that was their experience. We can only report our own.
Maybe somebody can show Savannah Guthrie the tape of Fetterman saying, kick the balls in authority, and maybe calling Joe Biden Joe Bin. And by the way, get this, during an interview today with the Penn Live editorial board, board member Jeffrey Lord, friend of this program, he asked Fetterman about my open invitation for him to join this program for the full hour and to do my radio show, if he wants, for the full 3 hours. Here's the response.
Sean Hannity said that he has repeatedly issued an invitation to your campaign to be his guest solo for the 3 hours of his radio show and 1 full hour of his national TV show. He said he's gotten no response from you, which I assume means you are no. So my question is, sir, as a United States Senator, and I worked for one that would be the late John Hines, you have to do this, debating the opposition thing all the time. And I'm just curious as to what your reasoning is for not doing that.
I just don't believe that. I mean, it's actually a fact that Fox News and part of that Sean Hannity is a part of has spent the last 5 or 6 weeks, unloading on us and saying outrageous things and going after us in a way more so than every other of the other Democratic candidates combined. So this is not necessarily a fair and serious, venue, and I just would not take that. It's an unserious invitation because he's all in for Dr. Oz, and that's the truth.
All right, here with Reaction, radio talk show host Larry Elder, along with Outkick founder Clay Travis. Larry, let me start with you. Well, the thing that he doesn't really want to do is answer a question, because he hasn't been asked a lot of hard questions. Here in Pennsylvania, $81 billion industry, he wants a moratorium on fracking. He wants absolutely no restrictions on abortion. He wants the taxpayers to fund heroin injection sites that are safe. This guy has advocated for more convicted murderers to be released than any other candidate in the history of running for the U.S. Senate. He wants to open up the prisons in Pennsylvania and let out a third, at least, of the population. This guy is more left than Bernie Sanders on every issue, Larry. No wonder he won't come on this program or answer anybody's questions.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Sean, he says he won't come on your program because you're, quote, all in for Dr. Oz. For crying out loud, I ran for governor, as you know, out here in California. The newspapers were all in on my opponent, Gavin Newsom, the Sacramento Bee, LA Times. I still did interviews. If we Republicans don't do interviews because the media is all in on the other side, we wouldn't do any interviews. And regarding Raphael Warnock's videotape, that's very compelling stuff, Sean, but you and I both know there is a double standard. When a female accuses a Democrat versus when a female accuses a Republican, the media has a very different attitude. Remember Tara Reid? She's the woman who claimed that Joe Biden sexually assaulted her, and Kamala Harris even said she believed Tara Reid. Now Kamala Harris works for Joe Biden, so either she's working now for somebody she accused of a sexual assault, or now she believes Tara Reid is a liar. And you and I both interviewed Juanita Broderick, who alleged that Bill Clinton raped her, and that 2 weeks after the alleged rape, Hillary Clinton verbally intimidated her. To my knowledge, Sean, Hillary has never been asked about what Juanita Broderick said. So the double standards are just all in your face.
Clay, let's go to Raphael Warnock for a second. You saw this tape of his ex-wife alleging that he was using his car as a weapon to run her over and, in fact, ran over her foot. He's been taken to court for not paying child support. We also know that he obstructed justice. He was arrested for obstructing justice in a child abuse investigation for a camp that he was running and that ultimately found 5 examples of child abuse. Now, why hasn't the media in the great state of Georgia been questioning Raphael Warnock the way they've been hammering Herschel Walker?
And Larry knows, and everybody out there listening to us knows why. Because Georgia is the firewall now, Sean. What you offered to John Fetterman, I would extend the offer the same way. Maybe he won't be able to claim that I've been as vociferous of a critic of his, although I'd like to think that I have, because he is the worst candidate that either party has nominated for a statewide elective office in all of 2022. And that was before, Sean, he didn't have the health status to be able to be a United States senator. Look, the job of a senator is to articulate in a convincing manner and advocate for your state. He cannot do that. He cannot speak. He has to conduct interviews using a desktop computer screen in order to be able to see what's being asked. And Sean, if you watch that NBC interview, he wasn't even consistent in being able to answer those questions. And so if you look at these numbers, Dr. Oz is going to win in Pennsylvania. And I think what's going on, and I would just say to the people of Pennsylvania, but certainly the people of Georgia, just listen to this case. Do you believe that Joe Biden has done a good job as president? If you do, then you should vote for Raphael Warnock no matter what, because he is a rubber stamp for Joe Biden. If you, however, believe, as most Georgians do, and most Pennsylvanians, and most Americans do, that Joe Biden has been an awful president, then how in the world could you vote for someone to be a rubber stamp for him? Look, Herschel needs to win. It's a big deal. We're 27 days out. The people of Georgia have a chance to redo the error that they made in January of 2021 when they put Raphael Warnock in office. He needs to be gone. And John Fetterman, quite simply, cannot do the job. If he had any sense of decency, Sean, he would step down and allow someone else to run, because he doesn't have the health ability to do this. These are massive elections, Republicans.
But he's the most radical candidate ever to run in the country.
Amen.
And Larry, I didn't even mention he wants, Pennsylvania to be a sanctuary state. I didn't mention that as mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania, he chased an innocent African-American jogger down the street, held him with a shotgun to his face. The guy did nothing, and nothing even happened in the town to justify that. Imagine if a Trump did that, or any Republican had done that.
They've got two issues. Their issue is abortion, and their issue is, by the way, these Republicans over there are systemically racist. They've got that, and that's it. They can't talk about prices. They can't talk about gas prices. They can't talk about the borders. They can't talk about the pullout of Afghanistan. All they can do is pound the table about abortion and about calling the people on the right systemically racist. That's all they've got. And come November, they are going to be toast in the House and hopefully in the Senate.
I hope you're right, both of you. Anyway, thank you both. Clay, appreciate it. Larry, as always, thank you.